Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
Well, it's about time to do another request, and as always, we put the requests to our patrons. Every time we get a request from somewhere, we put it into a big, long request list. Then we make a little poll. We grab a few of them, and we send them to our patrons, and we say, which would you guys like us to do? And then they vote on them, and we do those. Well, this time, there was a dead tie between two. We were going to break the tie, but then I just thought, why don't we just do both of them?
Why not?
People are equally interested in hearing us do the Tobe Hooper-directed Funhouse, and this movie that we're doing today, the first one, is The Initiation from 1984. I do need to mention that Leah originally requested this, and also a loyal listener and patron, Gary, has requested it a couple times as well. So they're the ones responsible for initially bringing it to our attention. But I was excited to see it because I remember the box art from being a kid. And also, it stars Daphne Zuniga in her very first starring role, really.
Yeah.
She only did one other movie before this, and that was when she was still in college, and it was kind of a student pick that was sort of put together called The Dorm That Dripped Blood, and we reviewed that as well, remember?
Yeah.
And that was interesting, but...
it was okay.
Yeah, it wasn't bad for sure. It was definitely a low budget, you could tell, labor of love for a bunch of college students.
Didn't she get her head run over in that movie? Or was that somebody else?
Right. She died really early on. Yeah, I think she had her head run over. Yeah, so that was disappointing. But here you get to see her through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then, like a couple years after this, she went on to do Spaceballs. I think just a couple years. Thus began her career, and I think she's still steadily working both in television and in movies. So anyway, I had not actually seen this before tonight. So how about you, Craig? Do you have any history with The Initiation?
No, I remember the box art too. God, I can just picture it in my head. It's like, a woman as a taper candle. When you said, let's think about doing this one, I honestly would have bet you $5 that we had already done it. I just had it in my mind that we had already done it.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking of the house on Sorority Row for some reason. I don't know.
I agree. I kind of felt like... The box art's not too dissimilar. It's just and then it's got a kind of a woman scantily dressed on it. Of course, this one she's a candle, and that one she's not. I don't know. There's something about the two movies too that feel
I don't know.
They're kind of in the same.
Yeah, they're both sorority movies.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them kind of deal with typical Greek prank hijinks gone awry. But, well, they're not the same movie.
No.
So, as big as a surprise as it was to me, they're not. And I know that probably I sound like a broken record because I feel like I say this all the time, but I can't believe I haven't seen this before.
Right?
I don't know how it slipped through the cracks for me. It streams everywhere. I just think that I had convinced myself that I had seen it. So I never clicked on it because I thought that I had already seen it.
Yeah.
But no, I hadn't. This was the first time. I didn't really know anything about it. I just sat down in my living room and watched it yesterday. The only thing that I knew about it was that it had something to do with a sorority initiation, and that Daphne Zuniga was in it. And the fact that Daphne Zuniga was in it was enough for me because I don't know. It's not like I'm going to start the Daphne Zuniga fan club or anything, but I just really like her. She's cute, and she's more than cute. She's really pretty. She has great hair. That's in my notes somewhere. Daphne Zuniga has great hair. And she's fun, and she's very, very young and fresh-faced in this, and just very beautiful and very easy to get on board with as a scream queen.
Honestly, she is, because she's just got that girl next door sort of look, but probably prettier than most of the girls who live next door to me. And I don't know. It's just like she's got. I will not say she's the best actress in the world, but I don't mind what she does. Like what she does, her shtick, her thing is totally great. I mean, she's just that girl next door. She's kind of plucky, kind of vanilla. You can just kind of put anything on top of her, really. And
well,
I
she's
think that,
so young here. I mean, you have to kind of curb your expectations. I mean, she's a child,
Yeah.
This is the very beginning of her career. Now, to be fair, I haven't really kept up with her career. What I do know is that she is hilarious in Spaceballs. Like,
Oh, yeah. God, yes.
it will forever live rent-free in my mind, her singing Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen in that deep baritone in a jail cell. That is one of the funniest scenes ever.
Yeah, it is funny.
So I'm a fan. Anyway, she's in this movie, and, you know, as far as the movie is concerned, it was all right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, nothing really to write home about.
I'm not going to be too critical of this movie. It is very same-samey with a lot of the other 80s slashers that we've done. But then there's like this sort of a subgenre of the paint-by-numbers 80s slashers that seem to care a little bit more about characterization and story, or at least trying to, even if they didn't really. And a mystery. You know, like this movie, I kind of think the script is a mess, honestly, and I don't think the script is very good. But they're trying. Like, you can tell they're trying to be a little more dramatic. It reminded me a little bit of, the house on Sorority Row, really. Curtains. Pieces, yeah. Maybe a little bit of... I don't know. It's just what is it I'm looking for? It's
I don't know.
There's like a soap opera quality to it because
right. There are several tropes. You know, one of the tropes of horror period is opening the movie with a traumatic childhood event. Like we definitely get that.
Usually involving sex.
Yes, sex and death, some combination of the two. You see it all the time, and we get it here. This it's a stormy night. Gosh, you said stuff about the script, and I agree with you. I think that I don't know if it's overwritten or what, but first of all, the first thing that I always look at when I look to see these movies is how long they are. And I, Alan was sitting behind me doing a puzzle, and I went, oh man, it's over an hour and a half.
by what, 7 minutes?
by like 7 minutes. But I think that was at least 7 minutes too much. Like, I think that they could have trimmed this down to a slim 120 and it would have been fine.
I was definitely looking at my watch. I was like, God, it's not over yet. Why is this still going on? It felt like a 2-hour movie.
It did.
Really did.
And there were some scenes that I was rolling my eyes and like, why is this conversation happening? This is the weirdest thing to bring up. 3/4 of the way into the movie, like this woman like trauma dumps on all of her friends. Like, why? What?
Almost immediately, I was thinking like a Gremlins. You remember how suddenly there's that really odd moment in Gremlins where she just like talks about this horrible thing that happened to her when she was a kid, and it just feels very out of place.
Well, I know, but I feel like in that movie it's intentional, and Phoebe Cates and Richard Donner, the director, whoever, they played it super, super straight.
Yeah.
So that it would be funny.
Yeah.
In this movie, it's played super, super straight, but I don't think it's supposed to be funny, and it's not.
No.
It's just weird. Like, okay, thanks for that little story of your youth.
What I was thinking is you've had about an hour and 15 minutes of what is essentially just a whole bunch of drama. Events happening between people and supposed character building, which doesn't really work. And then, before we even get to much of the killing, by then 3 people are dead that we don't even know very well or care too much about. And it's like, was this supposed to be a slasher movie? And then you realize it's going to be within the last 20 minutes that everybody's together in what is supposed to be a department store.
Yeah.
And they all get cut up. And so once you realize that's happening, you're like, all right, well, the movie must be ending soon. And now suddenly, like you said, this character is suddenly telling her life story. Like, you had an hour to do that.
Right.
I mean, why are you doing it now? I'm ready for the movie to be done and for people to get killed. So you should be killing her, not telling us her backstory.
Yeah. I have several problems with the writing, and one of them is the end, which obviously we will spoil, but it's a little early for that.
Oh, it's very twisty. Yeah.
The other big... Well, okay, aside from the childhood trauma, which I'll get back to in a second, the other big trope is, I know you love a movie set in the mall, so I figured that this would be, like, a really good thing in your book. Like, check, in a mall, it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that was a consolation for me. That's what it was. I was like, oh, well, at least we're going to be in a mall for the last part of this movie.
That is like the biggest, weirdest mall I've never been in a mall like that.
Well, it
looks more like a convention center or a hotel. Like
it is.
It was what, like I don't know, 6 or 8 stories?
You know, it's the Dallas Market Center. And the crazy thing is, I looked all this up afterwards, but watching this movie and seeing this, they are calling it the Pruitt building or whatever. I can't remember what. No, not Pruitt. Whatever the guy's last name is.
Yeah.
Building. And so it's her father's building. And they keep talking about, early on in the movie, they're talking about how they're going to do their senior prank there because she has the keys to the building. And so they want her to help them all, the pledges sneak in. And they're going to steal the uniform of the security guard, which is bizarre. I don't know how they thought they were going to do that. Then it's called a department store. But when you walk in, no, it looks like it's a giant atrium.
Yeah.
Huge atrium with floors, 20
like marble
floors.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's enormous. I mean, I have been in buildings like that. Like I've been in hotels like that. They're all centered around a huge atrium, but I've never been in a mall like that. And right, they call it a department store. No, that's not a department store. A department store is like a JCPenney or a Marshalls or something. Like this is clearly a mall, but they do spend the majority of their time like in housewares.
Right. The bed store.
This movie could have taken place. Oh God. See, and it was like Chopping Mall in that way too. Like, oh God, they spent a lot of time in housewares and Chopping Mall in the beginning too.
That's true, but then because that's where you lay down, sleep, and bang.
Right.
But this was that was a legit mall. This was not a mall. This is it was actually a convention center. It's a wholesale place. It's called the Dallas Market Center, and they have lots of events there. But then they also have, you can't get into this place unless you're a wholesale buyer, basically.
Gotcha.
And so I think that's what all those quote unquote shops are. They're not really shops. They're like offices and showrooms.
Okay.
But when I saw it, I was like, I think this movie was shot in Texas because I lived in Texas for 6 years of my childhood. And I remember just the way that the flooring was in there and the big atrium thing and all that. I'm like, oh my God, this is so Texas. And sure enough, yeah, I looked it up. It was in Dallas. In fact, most of this was shot there and then on the campus of Southwest Baptist University, I guess.
Gotcha.
Southern Baptist University, and I think it's in Fort Worth. So
it's actually a great set piece. Like,
oh, it is. Yeah,
it looks really cool, and it looks like a real environment. Like it doesn't look like a set most of the time. Because it is a real environment, obviously.
Right.
But they can do some kind of cool things with, seeing people at a distance on different levels, or seeing people, because this atrium is so big, you can have somebody in a shot, right up close, and then way, way behind them, you can see somebody, on the floors above or in an elevator above. So it's got that going for it.
But it has that inherent shopping mall problem in horror movies because it's always an abandoned shopping mall. And even though it's a very, very large space, if there are only like 6 people in it, if some small noise happens anywhere in there, it's going to reverberate through the whole space.
Especially by the nature of this one, because it's literally like one enormous room.
Yeah.
Basically.
But the way, the movie plays out is the way these movies often play out. I think... What was it? It was the one that takes place in a grocery store that we were most critical of, where it was like, come on.
Intruder, yeah.
Yeah, Intruder. A guy on aisle 5 is screaming, and certainly you're going to hear it way back in the meat room,
Yeah, that was a great movie. That was better than this movie.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I would rewatch that. I would not rewatch this. Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, we got to get to the trauma because it's at the center of the whole thing. Like,
true.
Too much so. Like,
yeah.
You could almost take this whole thing out and just make it somebody killing them in the mall, and that would almost be more interesting. But we have to have the childhood trauma. So it's a stormy night. For inexplicable reasons, we're panning through this room of a child, but all of the dolls' heads are ripped off, which is it's brought up again later, but never explained.
I think I know.
Okay, all right, well, you can tell me later. And then this little girl walks down this long, creepy hallway, and in my notes, here's what I said. Little girl walks down hall, sees mom f***ing some guy, stabs him. Dad comes in, catches fire. Like, that's what I thought happened. So she sees mom with this guy, they're banging, and then another man clothed comes in. But before that, she stabs the naked guy, with scissors in the leg or something. And then the clothed guy comes in, and the naked guy and the clothed guy get in a fight. and the guy who's wearing a coat like falls to the ground in front of the fireplace, and his clothes catch on fire, and he burns. And then Daphne Zuniga, grown young adult Daphne Zuniga, wakes up surrounded by sorority sisters, and that's when we get into the whole, this is pledge week.
Pledges Kelly, Beth, Marcia, and Allison, do you hereby swear that in this last week of your pledge period you will complete your sacred duties to the best of your ability, that you will obey your older and wiser active sisters, and that you will do anything they ask, no matter what the consequences, so help you God?
I swear.
Then rise, pledges, and let this night be heralded as the official commencement of your Hell Week.
Prank night is going to be on Saturday, and this is what the prank is going to be. Because your dad owns this big building, you'll get us inside, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we've already set all that up. But
Yeah.
So that's what I saw from the opening scene. But then later, like, Daphne Zuniga is haunted by this. Like, she keeps having this dream, but when she tells somebody about it, she says, a strange man came in and I stabbed my dad. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, you don't understand what happened here, do you?
Well, either she doesn't or I don't.
She, yeah.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what am I stupid or
Yeah, I
are
was
you
thinking
stupid?
the same thing. Yeah, I was like, what? But
So anyway, that's that whole backstory. Then there's the sorority thing. Then there's also, oh my God, this is so random. So she randomly mentions to one of her pledge sisters that she's interested in like the psychology of dreams. So then she goes and talks to this TA, I think, named Peter.
No, I think it's a professor.
Well, he's for sure a grad student. I don't. Yes, I'm telling you, I know this.
Okay, all right.
But he does teach. I think that's why I say he's a TA, because he does teach classes and grade papers.
Oh, so that's where they kind of
Yeah,
try to make it.
and like at first he's mad at her.
Why dreams and nightmares?
It's a fascinating subject.
Excuse me, but it wouldn't have anything to do with the fact that I'm writing my doctoral thesis on dream analysis, would it?
No. I mean, I didn't know.
You didn't know.
I have my own reasons, Mr. Adams.
I'm sorry. I do get a lot of freshmen coming in here trying to brown nose their way through, you know.
Oh, that's so dumb.
Yeah, she's like, I didn't even know that you were into dreams.
And so it's supposed to be this instant connection moment between them. But the idea that TA or professor, take your pick, is going to be mad because a student is doing a paper on what happens to be their specialty is basically the opposite of how life works. A professor would be thrilled for a student to do a topic on something that their life's work or study or whatever is in. I mean, it's exactly what they want, more or less. So that was dumb.
Well, and then also, like, I know that this happens in real life all the time, but he is a grown-ass adult, and she is an infant.
But he's immediately, they're too close.
Immediately. And then, like, they are just openly a couple. I mean, not, like, a couple, but dating or seeing each other, whatever. And even if he is just a TA, that would still put him at, like, I don't know, 22. I don't know. I guess it's not that big a difference. It was kind of jarring seeing them together on screen because he looks significantly older. Like he does maybe have played her dad.
Yeah.
And she looks really young. And he was super familiar to me. Because he's on Days of Our Lives.
I knew you.
But I didn't know that. That's actually not why because he's obviously 40 years older now. He looks significantly different. He's still a handsome man, but he looks significantly different. What I actually recognized him from, he was Barbara Hershey's cheating husband in Beaches.
Oh.
Another great movie. We should do that movie. Just
God. That's a horror movie in a different way.
That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so the whole thing. So she meets up with him, and then he's like, "Oh, well, I have a closet." That's not what he says, obviously. He's like, I'm doing dream studies in this little, what looks like a
closet,
back stock room or something. And he's like, I hook you up to an EEG, and then, I don't know.
We monitor your REM sleep and all that stuff.
To what end, I don't really know.
It's so funny because, like you said, it's so written, this movie, because, I mean, one thing you have to say about it is it plunges you into this quite quickly. Now she's down in his closet, he's showing her all the equipment, and then, boom, who happened to be, I don't know, under a desk for some reason, this grad student, assistant
Heidi,
or whatever,
yeah.
I guess he says, pops up. Her name is Heidi, and he immediately makes a crack about her appearance, which I thought was hilarious.
I didn't even notice that.
He's like, she's not very feminine, is she? Or something like that. Anyway, yeah, and they introduce themselves. And then Daphne Zuniga, whose name is Kelly, right?
Yeah.
Starts fondling the equipment. She's kind of running her hands along the dials and things on the stuff. And I was like, what is she doing? And she kind of goes off into La La Land for a second and then sees her face in the mirror. And then, I don't know, I was like, is she possessed now? What's going on?
I had no idea what was going on. Like, they're making a big deal out of mirrors the whole time.
Yeah, too much.
Yeah, too much. And not even just mirrors, but any reflection. And any time, maybe you can enlighten me on this. Anytime they were showing her, like, looking into a mirror, there was something uncanny about it. Like, it didn't really look like they were shooting Daphne Zuniga in front of a mirror. It almost looked like two... Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not really, no.
It looked like she was standing across from a video screen of herself rather than looking into a mirror.
I think I know what you mean, because this movie didn't follow the kind of typical mirror. She was literally looking into a very clean, nice, square mirror every single time, no matter what mirror she was looking in. And her face would just kind of fill the whole thing.
Or her body, yeah.
Yeah, and it was weird, because a lot of times in movies, when people are looking into mirrors, they leave a little gap around there, and also they're showing a little bit of the background, and oftentimes, they're trying to show something else in the background.
Well, also usually when you have somebody looking into a mirror, we, the audience, are usually looking at the back of their head and seeing their face reflected back at us. But in this, every single time you see, I guess she's supposed to be in profile, because you see her face basically full on in both. Yeah. Like, you're actually seeing her and seeing the reflection. It's a stupid point. It just stood out to me as being weird.
The reason it looks weird is because that doesn't happen in real life. Like, if she was staring into a mirror and she was in profile, you would see her profile in there. But they purposely angled the mirror for movie purposes to show more of her face, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's why it looks uncanny. It's just because that's not how mirrors work, unless they're angled for the purpose of showing more of that person's face in the camera. You're right. It doesn't look right for that reason. That, I guess I can see what you're talking about now. Yeah.
We need to get back to, okay, so, like, immediately he's like, do you want to do a dream study? And she's like, I don't know. And then 5 seconds later, she's in the chair. And and we have
and there we are.
like she goes to the bathroom, looks into a mirror, sees a reflection of her child self, like with blood, like from the scene, from the original scene. But we also skipped something, because right after an introduction to the sorority girls, we also go to a typical movie insane asylum where people are just acting ridiculous.
Talk about tropes.
And there's a whole scene that makes absolutely no difference, because all we need to know is that people broke out. And we also need to be introduced to, again, I was confused. As it turns out, this man that we're introduced to, he's burned. He's got burn scars on his hands and face. As it turns out, he's an inmate, but he's also the groundskeeper. But that was not clear to me at all. Like,
correct.
I thought he was one or the other, and I was very confused as to what was happening.
I thought he was the groundskeeper, because they don't refer to him as anything else. In fact, the inmates are all locked up, and he's outside tilling the ground with his 3-pronged instrument thing.
I thought later, when the cops are talking, or somebody's talking about it, they're like, including the inmate groundskeeper. But
yes. That was thrown in at the end, at the very end. So you're right. We didn't know this.
We don't know, but I mean, I'm embarrassed to admit that it took me maybe 5-10 minutes to remember that her dad, or whoever that was, that guy, that I thought was her dad in the original scene had been burned up. Like, I should have remembered that immediately. Like, it happened literally 3 minutes ago, and here we are being introduced to another character covered in burn scars, and it took me far too long to put two and two together.
Oh, okay. I mean, I saw it right away because the burn scars were so freaking obvious.
Yeah, pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, nice makeup or whatever on it. But
which one of these guys, is it him, is it the burned guy, or is it the other guy who's played by Clu Gulager? And why do I know him? We've seen him in a bunch of movies, right?
Yeah, Clu Gulager.
Was he in that Evil Cat movie?
Yeah, he was that kind of drunk, weird guy in the Evil Cat movie, remember? That's like drunk half the time and trying to steer the boat.
Yeah.
The Uninvited, right?
Yeah.
He was like a child actor in the 40s. I mean, he's been all over television. I think we chatted a little bit about him when we were doing that cat movie, but mostly like cowboy roles and things like that. But he actually played her stepfather. Although
well, it's a
she
mystery.
Doesn't know.
Right.
Oh, God.
I feel like it's easy for the audience to put together what's going on, and like when she throws that out, when she says I stabbed my dad and then this weird guy came in, like immediately it was like I am confused because that is not how I read that situation at all.
Yeah.
But as the movie goes on, it becomes pretty clear that we were right, and for whatever reason she doesn't remember that.
Right.
Yeah, her stepdad Dwight is played by Clu Gulager, and her mother is played by Vera Miles, who was in Psycho and Psycho 2.
And The Searchers, and she is a classic Hollywood gal. And and she brought a nice classic Hollywood feel to her role.
She really did. I really liked her.
I did too, and he was fine too. I mean, honestly, the two parents, they might have been two of the most convincing, sort of normal feeling, movie parents I've seen in a horror movie in a while. Except for they were living this. Again, this sort of tropey, I don't know what it is about these 80s films, and especially these 80s horror movies, and it always ends up being the final girl's parents, where they live in this very opulent house, and they're super rich, and the reason why we know they're rich and opulent is they walk around wearing clothes that nobody would wear.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. Like, who does that?
They eat at dinner tables with, like, fine china. She's pouring tea out of, like, a silvered tea kettle, and there are lit candles on the table, and they're sitting, way far apart from each other, like all on the same side of the table. I mean, it's just so silly, but it's a thing.
Well, and the stepdad is like smarmy and off talking to his mistress on the phone, and
she overhears it, but then doesn't do anything about it.
Okay, except for people. When do people start getting killed? I don't even remember.
Oh, no, well.
Has nobody been killed yet? My God, we've been talking for half an hour.
So much happens. Well, here's part of the issue, and I meant to say this in the beginning, but I didn't. We keep talking about the writing. The guy who wrote this is Charles Pratt Jr. He's a soap opera writer. He was writing soaps. He was writing General Hospital, and then later The Young and the Restless and stuff, like hundreds and thousands of episodes. And he was asked by New World Pictures to do a script, for a horror script for them. And so that's why this movie is so soapy, is because he was doing that kind of thing. And so
that makes a lot of sense to me, actually.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much story. That makes sense. Like, that's what soaps are all about. Soaps are all about intrigue and drama, and you don't need that in a slasher movie at all.
Overly dramatic, yeah, exactly. But we're sitting here going, when is anyone gonna die? And the first person who dies, I think, is the nurse at the inmate asylum, which, we see her for one thing, and then she's killed in the process of leaving. And she's killed by that same garden implement.
Exactly. I Googled, what is a garden fork called?
Let me guess, a garden fork.
It's called a garden fork?
Thanks for looking that up, so I didn't have to. I don't know what that shit's called.
It's like a garden fork, like a 3-tined fork, for digging or whatever. And this is what we had seen the burn guy working with. Mm-hmm. It's I don't know if it's it feels giallo to me, because you see his hands and forearms all the time, or whoever it is, you see their hands and forearms.
He even has gloves on. They're just plastic see-through, not
plastic
black ones.
See-through gloves, but also like the gray long sleeves of a workman's uniform that we had seen that guy in.
Yeah.
And we know this guy escaped.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, it seems like they're being obvious about who it is without showing the face, but at the same time trying to be
Coy about
sly about it. Like, it was difficult for me to figure out. And so the whole time I'm thinking, well, it can't be that guy. That's too obvious. It can't be him. If they were going to be that obvious about it, they would just show his face.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what was going on. And that one is not really explained, but they do, God, I don't remember. A bunch of people get killed, like 11 people or something.
By the end of it. But it takes a while before anyone we know gets killed. Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't know if it's next, but...
Is the father.
Oh, that's right. Because we also get killer POV shots throughout.
Which were good. I liked those.
It was fine. I mean, it was very standard Halloween stuff, but the dad or stepdad or whoever, he's going to meet his mistress, and he leaves in his car, and, well, he goes to get in his car, and he gets stabbed in the neck, and then gets beheaded, I think, with a machete. Again, the only time we see a machete.
Yeah. I love it that he's outside, walking to his car, and we get that killer POV, and he goes, "Who's out there? Anyone out there?" And then, as part of the crickets chirping and things, there's an actual shot of an owl hooting. That was so hilarious.
I wasn't paying that close attention.
An insert shot of an owl hooting. I was like, "Is this the Wizard of Oz? Are we in a kids movie? And you're gonna show us that the woods are spooky and scary at night by showing us an owl?"
I feel like he gets
weird.
beheaded in silhouette. Now that you say it, I don't know. You see some stabbings and stuff. There's some blood. It's not super
it's
gory,
not very
though.
good. No.
It's all right.
It's stabbing and blood. That's all it is.
Yeah, he gets his head cut off, I think, in silhouette. And then it cuts back into his wife, and she notices that he's left his glasses behind. She walks out onto the porch to see the car driving away, and she goes,
"Sometimes I think that man would forget his head if it wasn't attached."
Yes.
"Oh, my God."
Oh, you didn't appreciate that?
I thought that was so stupid. I mean, it's funny, I guess.
It's a little too obvious. Yeah.
Right.
It's pretty dumb.
The only other thing, before they get to the mall, she does that dream study, and Peter comes up with, like, 5 words. I don't even remember what they were. It was like...
This is so much gobbledygook.
I don't even remember. Did you write anything down about that? Because it was like he had figured out the key to her psychosis or something. He's like,
it's like scissors, mirror, father, mother, something else, and he's all there talking about it to her, and it's a bunch of mumbo jumbo stuff. And then his grad assistant springs in and says, "No, I disagree, because if you look clearly at here, she wasn't in REM sleep. Are you suggesting it's some psychic manifestation?" "Yes, I believe that's what it was." "Oh, that's garbage. That's not very scientific." Yada yada. "Well, how else do you explain it?" And then she storms off mad, and so they have a disagreement.
I know, they have that whole fight about it must be psychic activity. Once again, never mentioned again. Like,
no.
So many random things that are just throwaways. Like, well, she must be like psychic or something. Okay, well, we will never speak of it.
Now, that is how I interpreted that. But I do wonder if it's just a mistake of terminology, because I think ultimately what we later learn is that he believes it's a dream, and she believes that it's an actual memory. And so I think that's what they were kind of fighting about. But when you throw that word psychic in there, that's all we think about. It's like she's psychic, like she can read minds or see the future or something like that.
Something to do later on, again, we're kind of jumping around because it jumps back to these people periodically while the girls and guys are in the mall. But eventually they determine that because of mirrors,
yes,
that Kelly has multiple personalities and is schizophrenic. What? Like,
this is so dumb.
These grad students doing a dream study figure out that because she dreams of mirrors, she has multiple personalities.
With the touch of schizophrenia. And it's because Kelly has been chatting with her mom over the dinner table that she's in this dream study. And for whatever reason, her mom is like upset by it. She's like, no, you shouldn't be revisiting this. I want you to stop it at once. And she's like, I will study. I will go out with whoever I want to go out with. And I'll study whatever I want to do. You don't tell me what to do. And she storms out. So at some point, she's back doing this dream study thing, but he's decided to hypnotize her this time. So they're back in the closet on campus. Meanwhile, there are shots of Mom who's driving to the campus looking for her. And I have no idea, number one, why Mom has driven to the campus to look for her, except I thought, well, maybe because her husband hasn't shown up, the next day, and so maybe she's just looking for her in general. And then she somehow manages to find the closet that they're doing this hypnosis thing in. And when she walks in on them doing it, this girl is reliving her memory of this night, and she's like, dolls with the heads, broken off. And the guy's like, did you break the heads off the dolls? And she's like, no, not me. And then she kind of says a bunch of other things, and then she seems very upset, and that's when the mom bursts in and is like, what are you doing? And it seems like he's trying to pull her out of the dream by calling her name, but she's not coming out of this hypnotic state, and her mom just goes, it's Kelly Randall, not Fairchild.
Oh my God, that is such a soap opera moment. Now that I know that this was written by a soap opera guy, that is such, the reveal. She's not responding because that's not her real name.
Right.
Like she's not who you think she is. Oh, my God. That's hilarious.
So she says that. He wakes her up. She's upset. She runs out, and the mom has words with the guy, and the guy's like, why did you call her Randall? And the mom's just like, I'm not going to tell you, and just walks out. I'm like, what? This is a major point here that we're just going to drop until later when it's convenient to bring it up again.
When Heidi does research, Heidi oh my gosh. Heidi eventually, when it's far too late, Heidi, they just put it all together. They just put the whole story together from newspaper clippings and stuff, and they realize that Kelly's dad was the inmate gardener or whatever, and so he's out, and they think she must be in danger or something. Oh God. Yeah. I did want to say that hypnosis part, Daphne Zuniga was surprisingly good in that part, I thought. She seemed to me, the way that she was talking when she was under, it was so different than, I don't know, it felt childlike and sleepy, and
there was a contrast.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her in that moment, even though it's really stupid. This guy, Peter, the TA or whatever, not only does he study dreams, but he's also a hypnotist? What?
I know, right? It's all perfect.
And I love, I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot about hypnotism, but in these movies, they just pretend, they act like it's just, let's just hypnotize somebody.
Right. Close your eyes. Now I'm just going to talk to you, and
you're feeling very sleepy, right? And you're gonna explore all of your most traumatic childhood experiences. But I'm sure it'll be fine. Me, a TA, I know what I'm doing. It'll be okay.
Now we've passed by the party.
Yeah, but why not? Aside from the fact that it was fun because it was a costume party, does anything of consequence happen there?
No, it just sort of introduces suddenly some new male characters that later on we're going to need to remember that they exist.
Are we?
Really... Well, very good point.
They're just fodder. I mean, they do. They as much as they try to give these young people, the vast majority of this movie takes place in a mall, and we haven't even started talking about that yet. But there's really not a whole lot to talk about because at the party,
the vast majority of this movie does not take place in this mall. I don't think they get to the mall until about an hour in.
Oh my God. Maybe the mall part just felt so long.
It dragged so long, but really, it was an hour and 10 minutes into this movie before I was like, when is this initiation going to happen? Because I'm waiting for initiation stuff in the beginning. They have all the thing with the candles, and they're telling them that they're going to have this prank. And then it's not until the last 30 minutes or so that they do this prank.
Right.
And get into the mall.
Right. And it's the there were 4 initiates, but one of them mouthed off to the leader girl,
Beth,
and so she ended up going home. So 3 initiates, the 35-year-old sorority girl, That girl looked, I swear to God, like I thought she was surely their house mother. But no, she was supposed to be around their age, I guess.
Do you mean their pledge trainer, Megan?
Yes, their pledge. Oh,
yeah,
not
Megan
Beth.
was their pledge trainer.
Yeah, Megan, sorry. Yeah, Beth was the one who went back to her room.
Beth, who, like, suddenly out of nowhere, they're in the middle of getting ready for this thing. This girl who we've barely seen suddenly objects to absolutely everything that's happened to her in her life up until that moment with this sorority.
This is crazy. You've gone too far, Megan. I didn't come to college for this Girl Scout shit. We're grown women. Look at us. Candles, prepubescent songs. We should be doing something instructive, something positive. Not breaking into a stupid department store.
And storms off and quits. And I'm like, is this going to be important? Why do I give a shit? You know?
She needs to be, it's very important that she be back at the dorms to take a phone call later. That is the only reason.
The whole reason. Yeah.
They could have cut her entire character. It is entirely unnecessary. God, it's so silly. I mean, I expected her to go off on by herself and die. No. The rest of them, okay, so for every girl, there's also a male counterpart, except for Kelly, because her guy is Peter, and he's not there. But the rest of them all have these doofy, like, Three Stooges cartoon guys that they're there with.
It's another trope for these movies. I mean, I'm not gonna really complain too much about that because that's kind of what I watch these slashers for.
Right. That's actually kind of the fun part. Like, that's what... Yeah. Oh, God. But they do. They tried to overwrite the characters. I didn't care. I don't know. On the one hand, I felt like they tried to overwrite them. On the other hand, I didn't even know who they were. It took me forever. Like, all the guys looked exactly the same.
I couldn't get their names.
Me either. It took me forever. I had to keep going back and, like, filling in names as and I would notice that they would say... Every time anybody spoke to Marcia, they addressed her by name. And then there's another girl, a blonde girl, who takes her top off. They just refused to say her name. I'm like, come on, somebody!
Which matters to us since we're trying to write down their names. It probably wouldn't matter to you watching the movie, but it's glaring for us, right?
Yeah, right before they get into the mall, we see the mall security guard, the one mall security guard in this enormous building. He gets killed again, I think, with the garden fork.
Yes. He's the third person to get killed, and aside from the father, okay, these are just random people, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, so far, it's not a great slasher. There hasn't been a lot of slashing, and it just hasn't been, it's just like, oh, here's a person, now they're dead, kind of situation, so...
Well, and
but now they're in the mall.
Right, and now they're in the mall, and one of the infuriating things is that I guess they don't have any real reason to be scared, but they just keep splitting up for seemingly no reason.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, initially, like, when the three girls first go in, Kelly's like, you stay here at the security place, and you go cause a diversion, and I'm going to go somewhere else to get a spare uniform, and then we'll all come back together. I thought they might start getting picked off. Nope, no such luck.
No.
They just go off and do their things, come back together. Then the boys and, what's that dumb girl's name? Megan, come in to mess with them. Mm-hmm. And they do kind of mess with them for a while.
But not really.
No, by messing with them, I mean like jumping out at them with masks on. And like rolling bowling balls down a hallway or something.
But they take their time with it. You know, two of them are banging. And again, everything that happens in here, even if you just talked to another character in one of these hallways, it's going to be heard throughout the entire mall. So it doesn't really ring true, and it doesn't have a sense of urgency or place or what's going on. They're just randomly chit-chatting with each other and joining up and splitting up and joining up and splitting up. And the reason they don't just leave right after they get the uniform of this guy, which they actually go to the guard's lounge to get a spare uniform that they're going to leave, is because Megan or whatever has locked the door, locked them in. So they're trying to find her. Once they realize she's there, they're trying to find her to get the keys. And the hijinks are happening, but nothing really interesting.
No. Megan and her guy, Andy, are getting freaky on an enormous pile of rugs, which That might be fun. It never occurred to me, like an enormous pile of rugs. That
could be cool.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But then they start running around. I don't remember how he gets killed. She gets shot with a crossbow.
Yeah.
Because fortunately, there's a sporting goods store, and the killer can get knives and crossbows. And
all the doors are open to all these stores. Yeah, they don't have any problem going in.
No, they're not locked or anything.
Yeah.
So they both get killed. And then that's when we have the strange Breakfast Club confessional moment. Like that one girl, they've been kind of teasing throughout the whole movie about the fact that she's a virgin. And in this weird moment where they're all sitting around like a dining room table in a department store, she's like, I'm not a virgin. I don't even want to
say
roll the clip because I don't even want to say it. It's gross. And like, why?
Yeah.
And she says at the end of it, and I've never told anybody about it ever, not even my mom. And then she immediately hops in bed with the goofy guy who's been throwing himself at her all night. Like,
because that all makes sense.
That was weird. I mean, not like I care, but and in fact, remove that weird, gross story, and fine. Pop them in bed together. That's great. I don't care. But like coming right after this story about how she was like raped when she was 12? Ew.
Yeah.
That's not sexy. That's not like setting a mood.
It treats it kind of lightly. You know, I don't mean treats it for comedy. I just mean there's no real respect for reality here, or the character, or, you know, any emotional reality.
Yeah.
Because this girl's been teased this whole time. It's kind of nice. I mean, she's, you know, just sort of
she's
kind of
nice.
a pleasant, nice girl, whatever, who gets teased a lot. Now reveals, no, she's not a virgin because she was raped by her violin teacher when she was 12. And then the guy next to her is like, oh, well, I like you or whatever. And then they go off and then they have sex. And I mean, is this supposed to be...
the guy who was her date, he was her date to the costume party, and he literally was a big dick. Like, that was his costume.
Yeah.
He tried to come on to her by, like, saying he could, like, cure her of her virginity or something.
Virginity.
So gross. Like, so he's set up as a creep anyway. And then they try to redeem him. Like, after they bang, he makes a joke, and she's like, yeah, you sure have lots of jokes. And he's like, well, that's how I cover up my insecurities. And like the movie is trying to like, oh, look at these two sweet damaged people. Isn't that sweet? And then he gets harpooned.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what happens to her.
She gets killed. It's off screen though. Yeah, no. She gets chased or whatever, and then the next time we see her body being dragged around a corner.
That's right. And then Allison she has a guy, and her guy goes off to take a piss or something, and she eventually finds him with his throat cut. And so now she knows that there are dead people. She goes to tell Kelly, and Kelly's like, oh, okay, well, I want to see.
Kelly goes and finds
it. Kelly goes and she sees and finds it. Okay. And so now we're getting... So she tells Allison, because Allison doesn't want to go back and look at the bodies again. She's like, all right, just go hang out at the security desk and I'll come and get you. Well, Allison goes to the security desk and gets slaughtered.
Yeah.
And then Kelly comes and like just sees blood everywhere. She's like, oh no. And then she sees... I think she's the last one now.
Wait a minute though.
Yeah.
But now, in the meantime, it's been cutting from this to Peter...
Stupid
Peter. Who
Peter.
is trying to track her down, because once Heidi has come to him with all of her research, and he realizes that her father escaped from the mental institution, he's trying to find her, and he calls the sorority house, and there's no answer at the sorority house because Beth is in the shower.
Yeah.
So then he's like, I'm going to drive to her mom's place, and he goes to her. He tries to call her mom, but her mom picks up the phone and just lays it down.
Right.
So now he's got to drive out to her mom's place. So he drives out to her mom's place, and she's just like in this weird daze.
Well, it's because she just found out her husband's dead.
Right.
They just found his body.
But she opens the door. It's very dramatic. Opens the door, brings him in. She's just kind of there. He's like, oh, you need to find, what's going on? She says that he was dead, that he was found on the thing. He's like, where's Kelly? She says, I don't know. She's got to be at the place. Then he calls again from there, and finally Beth is out of the shower. So she's able now to pick up the phone and say, oh, yeah, they were playing this prank over at, her dad's department store.
That was the biggest waste of 5 minutes.
He's like, all right, well, I got to run over there and do that. You need to call the police and make sure they meet me there. He tells the wife that. I don't know why he didn't just call the police real quick.
Or why he just
But he
didn't
tasked her
know
with it.
that
I
they
don't know
were
if she
going
ever
to be.
does. So then he leaves and is heading to the department store. So all this is going on as well. It's trying to create this moment, I think, of tension where everything's going to converge in that store at this point now where Kelly is by herself.
By herself, but she's also seen somebody dragging one of the bodies around, and we've seen that it's that burned guy. Now, she still doesn't have any idea who that is, supposedly, but Peter knows that that's her dad. Okay, now at this point, I didn't know what to think because... Again, I'm watching this in my living room. Alan is sitting behind me. And early on in the movie, I said, I think Daphne Zuniga did it.
Right?
Because she's never around when somebody gets killed, but she's always immediately there in the aftermath. Like the very next scene, she pops in every single time. And so I thought, I think she's doing it. She's crazy, especially since they said... she's got multiple personalities. But then this guy is there and he's dragging the bodies around.
Yep.
I didn't know what to think at this point.
Yep.
Is this when we get to the big reveal that really
Almost.
Okay,
They end
all
up
right.
on the roof. and
right.
this burned up man is following her, and they're kind of at the edge, and she picks up a lead pipe and smacks him, and he falls off the roof of this place, which had to be, I don't know, 20 stories tall, really, really high up, into a bunch of cardboard boxes. At this moment, Peter pulls up, comes up, looks at this guy, sees who he is. The guy is still conscious and saying something. And then Peter just leaves him and goes inside.
Yeah.
God. So then he goes inside. So he's inside looking for her. And so she comes down off the roof. She thinks that it's over because she's knocked this guy off the top.
Does she get hit or something? I don't remember how it comes about.
No. Peter comes in.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. He comes in and he goes to her and he like embraces her and they're like, oh, it's over or whatever. And then she stabs him. And I was like, I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it was her. It was crazy. And then in my notes, I have, wait, there's two of them?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have any problem with a good evil twin story. That's fine. But this pisses me off because there was nothing to suggest that we might...
There are the barest of hints in retrospect. This is where the doll thing comes in.
Okay, I don't get it.
She didn't tear the heads off her dolls. Her sister tore the heads off her dolls. And I think, I didn't bother to do this, but they keep making this big deal about the mirrors or whatever. I suppose if you went back and looked at her dream, you would see that she is looking in mirrors, and instead of seeing herself, that's actually her sister in the mirror.
Okay.
Because she's in the hallway, and then suddenly she's stabbing her dad.
Okay.
That was actually her sister. So, I mean, but try to decode that in the process. It's never going to happen. They're not strong enough hints. And then her mom at one point, like when Peter leaves her to go to the mall and she's supposed to call the police, she makes a comment that says, it's happening again.
Yeah, but that could be anything.
It could be
like, that could be
anything.
diarrhea.
It could- It could be.
I mean, it's a very ominous line. But
About.
Right, I get it. I get in retrospect that's what she's talking about.
But I have so many questions, though. They're presumably still living in the same community. Like, how do you keep all this hidden from the rest of the community?
Oh, right.
How does anybody... You know, there's this murder. There was this guy who was in the flames, and he was put in a mental institution. All this shit's reported in the paper. Her new husband, who was the guy that, you know, she was banging, that got stabbed...
Right.
Is like this super important guy who's got this giant department store. Suddenly, they were able to concoct this story that she fell out of the treehouse, and then she lost her memory... And they just made her forget she had a sister, and nobody else ever brought this up to her?
Yeah.
Ever? Like, what? It doesn't make sense. So it turns out not only did this man escape from the mental institution, but her twin sister was there too. And I think that woman who we never saw her face, who was staring down at the window at the man, remember, who starts kind of pounding her fist against her leg?
Yeah.
That inmate, I think that's supposed to have been her twin sister.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah, but then
Back at the asylum. Back
at the asylum, yeah.
Early on in the very first asylum scene. Yeah, I didn't...
It's both of them, escape from the asylum. And she makes a comment to Daphne. Well, they're both Daphne Zuniga. By the way, she did a great job of playing both sides of this.
Oh, my God. The crazy one was hilarious.
It was great.
It was hilarious. It was...
Hilarious. I mean... What do you expect from this movie, though?
It was really funny. I really, really enjoyed it. Oh, it was funny. And they got her made up funny, with bags under her eyes and her hair is a little scraggly.
At least she looks different,
Yeah, they've Boo Radley-ified her. It's funny.
That's right.
Oh my God. She explains, she's like, I don't even know what she says, but she's like, Daddy was cleaning up after me.
What?
That's
oh my God.
so right. So all of that killer POV, that was her. She was the killer. The dad was just trailing around behind her, cleaning up the mess.
That's
which,
so
again,
dumb.
I know it is really stupid. No, it would make a lot more sense if the dad, I don't know, maybe he
was doing it for her or something.
Right, doing it for her, or if he were trying to get ahead of her to get to Kelly, that would make sense.
To warn her or something.
Yeah, but just trailing along behind her doesn't really make any sense.
Well, I just want to know then, what was the dad's motivation? What was his thing through this whole thing?
I don't know.
So he's escaped, but he's cleaning up after his daughter, maybe because he loves her, he's trying to protect her, okay. But then he's also trying to maybe get ahead of her, at least when it comes to his other daughter, and warn her, right? Are we supposed to think that when he was coming after her on the roof, he really wanted to warn her? Or
I guess?
There's no way to know.
Well, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense that he would be protective of the crazy one, because the crazy one is the one who stabbed his nemesis or whatever.
Yeah.
They were kind of playing on the same team. And this is so stupid. Why are we speculating about this? And then if they had been in that asylum together, maybe he was watching out over her there too.
Yeah, maybe they were both just in cahoots and they both wanted her sister dead as well.
Maybe.
And why? I don't really know. I don't know really understand what their motivation was for going on this crazy killing spree of all of her friends and shit. Why weren't they just cutting to the chase?
That doesn't even make any sense. Okay, so her name is never mentioned in the movie, but she's credited. The evil one is credited as Terry. And Terry says that what she's going to do, she's going to kill Kelly because she's pissed off. Kelly got this great life. She was rich and had everything she ever wanted. And Terry says that I'm going to kill you and I'm going to steal your identity, basically.
Right.
But if that was what she wanted to do, right, well, why would she kill all of her friends?
Either way, you've got a body to get rid of, right? It's not a case of where, because she makes it sound like she's setting her up. Well, she's setting her dad up is what she's doing, right? She's now
right. He'll take the
everyone's
fall.
going to think that Daddy killed all these people, and I'm going to kill you, and then hide you, I guess, and then I'm going to take your place. Well, why didn't you just go and kill her and take her place?
Right.
That's the easiest thing to do.
Well, because she's crazy. I don't know.
That's it.
It's funny. It would
it's
be
convoluted.
It would have been a much, much shorter movie.
Right?
That may have been okay. But anyway, so the crazy one's got the pretty one. The crazy one's got the pretty one down on the ground, and it looks like she's going to kill her. And then Terry is shot from behind, and I didn't know who this was going to be, but it ends up being the mother, which I actually kind of liked.
Yeah, I like that too.
And then it seemed like maybe the mother and Kelly could, I don't know, repair their relationship.
She's
and
making
lives
things
and
right.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
yeah.
But then it cuts outside to show us that Peter is still alive, even though he got stabbed in the gut with a 12-inch knife, and the dad is still alive. Now, I don't think that was a 20-story building, but I would say probably at least 6 or 8 stories. And a movie is never going to convince me that you can fall off an 8-story building into a pile of trash and just be fine.
Right.
I don't believe it. But that's the end. The end.
Yeah. What a movie. And then the end credits music was the same 4 bars repeated over and over again at different octaves. I thought I don't know if it was as distracting for you as it was for me anyway.
There were lots of things that were distracting. One of the things that was distracting in this movie was that the opening credits were just white lettering on black background, and it went on for what felt like a week.
Felt like they were stretching for time more than anything.
I know. And then another thing that bothered me is there were some scenes in the movie that were out of focus.
Oh, yeah, for a while.
And other scenes where they were clearly just showing us a frame of something, and it was
like
really evident.
Or something.
Well, and even like one of the guys who died, who got his throat cut, you see him a couple of times, but it's just a freeze frame of him. It calls itself out. Like, it's obvious. Like, if this was the only print you had of this scene where these two girls are talking about nothing important and you didn't have it in focus, cut it out. Don't
the lack of
just
focus
put it in.
several more than once on something where like you said, two people are right there in the foreground talking about something and they are out of focus the whole time. It's really surprising. The movie, I think it had two directors. Originally, there was a guy named Peter Crane, who's a UK director, who was brought in originally for the project. And then he was kind of going over budget real fast. And they said that he had this sort of European sensibility about him. He was trying to do cool, funky camera angles and things like that. And was just wasting a lot of time and money when they needed something that was just a little more pedestrian, mainstream slasher formula. And that's when they brought in Larry Stewart.
But whoever they were, the producers or whoever made that decision, I think they made the wrong decision. I think that this movie would have worked a lot better if it had been more like the Italian slashers. Yes.
I 100% agree with you. In fact, I think that was something that they had said was like, this is too giallo and we just need it to be more standard American, and that's when they booted him off. But they kept a lot of his stuff in there, and you can tell. From what I read, it's the earlier stuff in the sorority house with the
insane asylum,
and a lot of the POV stuff was from him. And you can tell it's stylistically it's very different from the rest of the movie. It's very different from Chopping Mall in that I think Chopping Mall is so fun because it gets right into the action.
Yes.
There's a lot of people to kill off, and they're being pursued the whole time. Whereas this is just over an hour of soap opera storyline. A few random people get killed, but we don't care about them. We don't know what's going on. We're totally
not in
confused.
Interesting ways.
Well, and the effect, the blood, there's no good gore effects in here at all.
What we saw didn't bother me. I thought it looked fine. I mean, it was just blood.
Well, that's what I mean. There was no, this is what these movies kind of like, that's a box they often have to check. Like, we've got The Prowler, which is a movie that doesn't really have a lot going for it, except the gore effects are freaking amazing. So I just felt like a movie like this might have tried harder in that department.
Right, I get it. And it was almost like, it was kind of like they tried to shake things up, but in just the most boring, I don't know, like
nonsensical.
Okay, so his regular MO, the killer's regular MO, is that garden fork, but he can cut one guy's head off with a machete that must have just been laying around in the driveway, and he can shoot somebody with a crossbow, and he can shoot somebody with a harpoon, and he can get somebody in the back with an axe, and but it's just like grab bag. It doesn't. There's no sense to it. There's no logic to it. It's just, I guess, because there's a sporting goods store in the mall, he has access to all these things. But it's not. Like, I feel like they were maybe trying to make the kills more creative, but they're not. I've seen every single one of them before. It's just a hodgepodge of things from other movies.
Well, he must have been working in cahoots with her, because there were definitely moments where there was a man there who was trying to grab the girls and who was killing them, for sure. Like, he crawled into the elevator at one point, remember?
Yeah, vaguely.
So, I mean...
I don't know. I was bored.
Me too.
I had it playing on one computer screen, and I'm typing my notes on the other computer screen, and, maybe flipping over to something else on my computer, because it was all right. I don't want to dog it too much because it's not terrible. We've seen worse. We've seen worse slashers. We've seen lazier films. It's just okay. It's a very typical 1980s slasher. There's really not much special about it, except for that Daphne Zuniga is in it, and she's pretty and cute, and I like her. But other than that, it's not memorable. It's not at all memorable. Yeah,
that's the worst thing, right? If you're an hour into the movie and you're kind of bored, and you're like, I thought I was watching a slasher. When's the slashing going to happen? It's not good when you're checking your watch an hour in, and I sure was. But anyway, thank you very much for Leah and Gary for recommending this to us. Thank you to all of our patrons for selecting it. It was definitely on our list. I was super excited. Had very high hopes for this movie.
Still glad to have seen it.
Still enjoyed watching Daphne Zuniga up there.
Yeah. I
mean, as well as like Vera Miles, you know?
Yeah, I liked her.
It was cool to see her in there. So, it had a few things. But anyway, this is why we watch these, and this is why we value requests from you guys as well, because we'll often get to see movies we wouldn't have picked out by ourselves. And that means that next week we're going to be doing The Funhouse, which is directed by Tobe Hooper. Another film I haven't seen, but has been on my list for quite a while, and I'm really excited to watch it. So we'll see how that turns out. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please share it with a friend. You can find us online just by Googling Two Guys and a Chainsaw Podcast. Join our patron community and help us pick out these movies. So we have nice little conversations going on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Chainsaw Podcast. I've actually started posting some little snippets, little previews that you can see of the mini-sodes that we do a few times a month, just to give you a little taste and maybe convince you that maybe you need to become a patron, support us, join the community, and get access to those full episodes that we put out every month. Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.